Hello, welcome to my channel. My name is Brian, and today I would like to talk about this, the Switch 2 Pro Controller, not to be confused with this, the Switch 1 Pro Controller. They both work on the Switch 2. They both work as an alternative to the included Joy-Cons and Joy-Con grip, and they do essentially the same thing. And yet, they are not the same. They are different in a handful of ways, not the least of which is the price. This one, the original Pro Controller, you can still purchase for $70 US. And this one, the Switch 2 Pro Controller, can be yours for the low, low price of $85. Now that's a $15 premium between these two controllers. Is it worth it? Is it worth upgrading from this to this? Do you even need a Pro Controller when you can stick to the included Joy-Cons? Well, let's talk about it. The Switch 2 Joy-Cons, the ones that came with the system, are a technological marvel. They have all the buttons and joysticks of regular controllers, but also the movement controls. They work separately in each hand, or they work together in the included grip, or you can split them into two different controllers, each player with their own Joy-Con. These can even be used as a mouse. Actually, two mice. Both are a mouse. It's amazing. It's crazy. It's crazy what they've packed into these tiny little things, plus an amiibo scanner in there, which, you know, if you're an amiibo fan, how exciting. But they also have downsides. They are super thin to match the system itself. So ergonomically, they're not the greatest. The joysticks are kind of these awkward positions, you know, not quite far enough in for your thumb to get to. Once again, just because they have to live on the Switch. They're taller than they are wide. And the grip that comes with it, doesn't do a whole lot to help with that. Because to make it a controller from the back, it's still, the thumbsticks are so close. They're so close to each other, to your hand, that, I don't know, doesn't feel that comfortable. It's fine. It's aggressively fine in the grip. But to me, it's not the most comfortable gaming experience, especially when you're trying to reach up top and get your hand down for the thumbstick. And aside from those issues, I think it's just a great idea to have a second controller for a friend or a family member. And yes, technically the Joy-Cons can become two controllers, but when you have it as its own little controller, it's just a little 4-button, you know, it's got one, you know, SL, SR, I don't know what the S, side, right, side, left, I don't know, but just the one joystick, just the 4 buttons and the 2 buttons on top. So it's not the full controller experience. So that means it only works on certain games, it only works in certain situations, and honestly, it is not very comfortable. If I thought this was not ergonomic, this you're not going to be able to do for hours at a time. Maybe a kid can, but their hands are smaller. Now, if you're looking to add a second controller for your Switch 2, you have a bit of a unique situation. Any Switch 1 owner upgrading to the Switch 2 already has additional controllers that will work. Even if you never bought a single additional controller for your Switch 1, the included Joy-Cons will work on the Switch 2, giving you a full second controller, either with the Joy-Con grip or as separate Joy-Cons. But since compatibility isn't a factor here, since any Switch 1 controller will work with the Switch 2, why would you buy a new Pro Controller if you're coming from the Switch 1? And if you aren't coming from the Switch 1, why pay the extra money for a Switch 2 Pro Controller when you can save a little money and get the Switch 1 Pro Controller? Well, on paper, there are a number of upgrades that come with this, the Switch 2 Pro Controller. But first, let's talk about similarities. These two are the same size, so no ergonomic benefit to the new one versus the old. They weigh about the same and only come in black. They have the Same main buttons, the A, B, X, Y, the two joysticks, the D-pad, plus, minus, home, and screenshot. Both have motion controls, as in you can physically turn the controller like a steering wheel and you'll turn in the game, assuming you have the game set to motion controls. They both have rumble and both have that built-in amiibo functionality, as in there's physically a scanner right in the middle, so you can just tap any amiibo you own and get whatever comes with tapping an amiibo. I don't know. And all of that amounts to very, very similar controllers. But there are some genuine differences and upgrades for the Switch 2. There's the faster charging, the HD Rumble 2 upgraded rumble, the 2 additional back buttons, GL and GR, that can be customized to whatever you want them to be, the C button to start a new chat, and an audio jack for your headset. Also, I said they both come in black, but the Switch 1 controller has that cool semi-transparent retro thing going on with textured grips, while the new one, it's just matte, solid black all the way across, except for on top where it's got this gray that's kind of, to me, a little PlayStation gray, and it also appears in the little wells underneath the joysticks. Now, some of these features matter more than others. Is the improved charging substantial? Absolutely. It's 3.5 hours to charge the new one versus 6 hours to charge the old one. However, as far as battery life goes, it should last for 40 hours of gameplay. So assuming you aren't going to be playing for 2 days non-stop, at some point you will need to sleep between game sessions and you can just charge it then. So as long as you remember to plug in your controller after you're done playing, it doesn't really matter if it takes 8 minutes or 8 hours to charge. But yes, if you forgot to charge it, it's good that you can charge it in a few hours in a pinch versus 6 hours. But also remember, you can plug it in while you play. So if it runs out of battery, you can just plug it in. So to me, is the faster charging something that makes it worth upgrading alone? No, it doesn't. But it is nice to have. It's a benefit of a more modern battery. And one side note, because I saw this in my comments and just wanted to flag this. If you buy the charging grip, not the one that comes with the system, but the charger version, it's $40 for a charging grip. It doesn't have a battery in it. It just has a USB-C port that passes through power. So it's not like a AirPods case that holds a few charges in it, and when you take them out and put them in, it just starts charging. Or even like the Switch itself, which has the battery, and when you plug in the controllers, even if you're playing, they're charging back up. The charging grip only charges if you plug it in. So all it's really doing is giving a wall outlet to your Joy-Cons, which I don't know if that's the clearest, but in case you were wondering, there's no battery in the charging grip. It is just USB pass-through. Do with that what you will. Anyway, the style, size, weight all remain the same between the two Pro controllers, other than the slight color variations, so those aren't a reason to upgrade either. Upgraded rumble, I'll be honest, I thought I'd be thoroughly unimpressed with, that I wouldn't even notice it other than the Switch 2 Welcome Tour demos. But I have noticed it, and it's pretty great. They've updated the motors, so instead of an off-balanced weight spinning around a center pole, it vibrates back and forth using magnets. Boy, do they love magnets for the Switch 2. But because of this, it can vibrate much faster and harder than before. Plus, they've built it into the backing of the controller itself to up the intensity. Plus, it can play music using just the rumble. Which, you know, I kind of want to. That sound, there's no speaker. That is the sound of the motor vibrating. Isn't that crazy? That's how finely tuned the vibration is of the HD Rumble 2. It can actually play music through just vibrating. No speaker inside, it's just vibrating at a frequency to make the one-up or the coin sound. It's kind of crazy. It's impressive. Now, while it does feel nice to tell the texture of the road in Mario Kart World, differentiating cobblestone from dirt, is HD Rumble 2 such a substantial feature as to warrant an upgrade on its own? No. But it was a pleasant surprise to find it lived up to some of the marketing. The C button that's on here, that's just a convenience thing. You don't have to exit the game to start chat from the home screen. You can just hit the C button and you jump right into chat. It saves you a few seconds every time you do it. Once again, it's not a have to upgrade, but it gets rid of a couple of the annoyances. And speaking of the core function buttons, the home button on the Switch 2 works just like the Switch 1 always did. But the one thing you need to remember is that if you keep your Switch 1 Pro controller and you try to wake up your Switch 2 with the home button, it's not going to work. Nintendo says they just can't make it happen. They can't upgrade the old one to wake up the new Switch 2. I don't know why. So that means if you keep the original Switch 1 Pro controller and you have the Switch 2 over by the TV and you're sitting on the couch to turn on the Switch, you're gonna have to get up off the couch, walk across the room, and physically turn it on by pushing the power button on the console itself. Or you have to keep a right Joy-Con next to the couch, and once you wake up the Switch 2, you gotta go change the grip order and change it to this one, which, once again, it's not a deal breaker, but it is annoying. It's annoying, and certainly more than the chat function, getting up off the couch to have to turn on and off the Switch, especially when there is you have to turn it on and then you have to push the buttons to wake it up, and there could be a back and forth. So that just becomes more of an annoyance. So these are all little things that add up to a tempting upgrade to the Switch 2 Pro controller. But those aren't the only differences, and I think the biggest actual improvements, the reasons that make the upgrade truly worthwhile, are the build quality, the much advertised and true gamer edition of the programmable back buttons, and the barely mentioned, often overlooked addition of a headphone jack. The rear buttons, those are not something I have ever been too personally excited about. I tend to be a tense gamer. I tense my hands up when I'm trying to finesse something in a game, and I have found that I accidentally press pretty much every back paddle that I've ever encountered on a controller. For my Xbox Pro Elite whatever controller, I literally removed them day one and have never used them again. But these, however, are the best back buttons I have ever personally run into, at least for my personal use case. I don't want to use them, I don't want to accidentally press them, and so they should just vanish into the back of the controller, and that's exactly what these do. It is literally such a slim form factor to these back buttons that when I first picked it up, I didn't even notice they were there. I don't accidentally press them when I'm playing a game, though to be honest, I still don't know what I should use them for. I've almost exclusively played Mario Kart for the last week and some Welcome Tour, neither of which have had any real need for the extra buttons outside of the Welcome Tour minigames and demos. But I'll have to see how I feel about them when I'm playing something that can really take advantage, and I'll report back to you if these change me into a back button person. But for now, I personally like that I can't notice them. Though, that being said, pressing them isn't difficult. I can find them right away. The second I want to push them, I can, but for the most part, I don't accidentally. It's the perfect mix of an added feature that doesn't get in my way, and I think that's a plus. But like I said, it isn't just these new back buttons that makes the additional $15 price tag easier to swallow, but also the audio jack. I have a pair of Bluetooth headphones, AirPods, that I pair with my Switch 2 just because I like to chill with AirPods, but they don't work that well with a more 3D soundscape, though honestly they've been a little better than I expected. But still, if I'm going to play a competitive shooter or something where I need to be able to hear if someone is sneaking up behind me, I'll stick to my over-the-ear gaming headphones. Gaming headphones tend to require USB dongles to maintain their low latency. Not always, but certainly a lot of them do. Mine do. Wired headphones are always a convenient option, especially when you have to swap them between systems. Having the audio jack on the controller means I can use one wired gaming headset between my PlayStation, my Xbox, and my Switch 2, which is just convenient. And for a lot of people, you can't afford to have multiple headsets. Who can afford 2 gaming headsets? So having just one with a wire, or a wireless one that has a wired option that you can just plug into every system, is extremely convenient, and something that the original Switch was missing. The original Pro controller does not have. So if you want to use headphones, gaming headphones, or any headphones that have a wired connection, you gotta go with the Pro 2s, baby. But all of these are objective features, things you can consider just by looking at the sales page. What about the intangible? What's the build quality? What is it like to actually use it? Is it any different in practice versus the Switch 1 Pro controller, or even the included Joy-Cons and grip? Well, I've been using it for the last week to get a feel for it, and while I can't speak to how it'll hold up for years to come, what I can say is that right now, from the start, it's been excellent. The joysticks, they feel really good. The buttons are nice and soft. You feel like you have a lot of control with it in your hand. I did a side-by-side where I played my Switch 2 on my monitor with the Switch 2 Pro controller, and then I had Mario Kart 8 Deluxe on my old Switch with the original Pro controller, and I just swapped back and forth left and right. And I could tell you the difference was substantial. Now, obviously, my old controller has had some miles put on it. I've had it as long as I've had the V1 Switch, so take it with a grain of salt that a brand new controller will feel better than an old one. But even ignoring its age, the joystick is a massive improvement. Same with the buttons. They all just feel less clumsy. And I wouldn't call this a clumsy controller. I wouldn't say the original Pro controller was clumsy at all. I used it for everything. But this one just feels, you feel more in control. You have more handling. It feels like you have to do less to get the result you want, which to me is a good thing. Even when you disregard its age, the Switch 2 Pro controller, it just feels more premium. And I think that's true for the entire Switch 2. It feels more premium than the Switch 1. It feels much less like a toy and more like a pretty high-end piece of tech. And whether or not that's a good thing probably depends on whether or not you're handing it to a 6-year-old. But for me, I think the feel of the system, the build quality, is top tier. I'm very impressed, and I think a lot of you would be too. And I feel the exact same with the Switch 2 Pro controller, that it is a palpable build quality upgrade over the original. And even when I compare it to the included Joy-Cons, which are definitely high quality, top tier build, just like everything else, but because it's built to be flush to the system, because it's built to be travel ready, the actual thumbsticks, the buttons, are physically shorter and smaller. And on top of that, thumbsticks are further in on these, which was the same with the original Pro controller. But between these two, like this thumbstick, just using it right now, it feels like, okay, it's a Joy-Con thumbstick. This feels like a Pro controller. And I'll tell you, not only are the joysticks shorter and not nearly as good as this, and the buttons are the same thing. They're going to be smaller. They're physically smaller, both in terms of the round front button and how far out they go. They don't feel the same. They're like clicky, and these are soft, right? So it's a full different experience, and definitely, like I said, putting them into the grip, it's not the same. It feels like a Joy-Con in a grip. Pro controller. I don't know where my grip is from my original Switch. I doubt I will ever use this again, and I will just stick to these either on the system itself or separate, and if I want them joined together, I'm gonna go Pro. And even in handheld mode, it's just digging into my hand. It's not super comfortable. It's just too darn thin. I'm gonna need a grip eventually. I'm gonna try one out. I'm gonna do a review on it, so subscribe to watch my grip review. But all that being said, when you are deciding between a $95 extra set of Joy-Cons versus the $85 Pro controller, to me, it's a no-brainer. And I definitely wouldn't be buying a charging grip, not when I don't even get close to running out of battery on my Joy-Cons. And like I said, it doesn't even have a battery, so what's the point? But the real question is, do you need to buy the new Pro controller? There are two different groups of you out there, and to each I'd give a slightly different recommendation. The first group are people who just bought a Switch 2 who never owned a Switch 1. To this group I say, buy it if you can afford it. I know the Switch 2 is expensive and this is a big purchase on top, but if you're going to buy a second controller anyway, get the Pro controller. I've almost exclusively used my Pro controller when playing my Switch 1 in docked mode. From Breath of the Wild through Mario Wonder, this thing has been my absolute go-to. Could you use the Joy-Con? Absolutely. They can work separately or join together with the included grip if you're looking to play any mouse mode like a Cyberpunk or the upcoming Metroid, then you'll have to stick to the Joy-Con. There's no mouse mode in the Pro controller. Now, could you save $15 and buy the Switch 1 Pro controller? Of course, but I wouldn't personally recommend it. The improved build quality alone is worth the $15, but all the added features and the perks definitely help make it an easy choice. Remember, you'll probably end up using it for the entire life cycle of the Switch 2. I never needed a second Pro controller, so starting off with a better build will serve you better over time. The other group out there, that one's a bit tougher to give a recommendation to. I'm speaking, of course, of all of you out there who owned a Switch 1 and already have at least one Pro controller. Should you upgrade? I think it really comes down to how your Pro controller is holding up and whether or not you play a lot of finesse games. If your Pro controller is working great, maybe it's only a couple of years old, and you predominantly play cozy games, retro games, turn-based games, any game that doesn't require really fine movements, even though some of those do, but let's say you play a game that doesn't. I say keep the controller you've already got until either it starts to wear out or you've got an extra $85 sitting around. Wouldn't that be nice? But if you do play a ton of high speed, high finesse, every movement counts, every pixel counts games, you'll probably want to upgrade, especially with all of the third-party games that are coming out for the Switch 2. If you are at all aware of a controller in your hand, if you can tell when you're playing with a low-quality controller, I think you'll really appreciate the updates. I don't think it is absolutely essential to throw away your old Pro controller for the new one, but as far as accessories go, I think this one is worth its price. Some of the stuff for the Switch 2, not worth what they're charging, but I do think the new Pro controller for only $15 more, I think that's a fair price. But what do you think? Do you have the Pro controller? Do you think it's big enough of an improvement that it's a must buy, a must upgrade, or do you think it's just not worth the money? Let me know in the comments below if you're gonna get a Switch 2 Pro controller, if you're gonna stick to your original, or if you got one and you just don't think it's worth the money. If you liked this video, if you found it helpful, please give it a like and make sure you've subscribed for more gaming content, more tech content, not just Switch 2, though there's plenty more Switch 2 content to come. Be sure to head over and follow me on Instagram to be notified whenever I upload a new video, and consider following me on Twitch, where I hop on periodically to try new games or games I've missed over the years. If you want to buy any of the products I've mentioned in this video, as well as any other Switch 2 games and accessories, I've got affiliate links in the description below. If you buy through any of those links, I may get a commission, which would help me out a ton as I continue to grow this channel. And if you are still here, thank you so much for watching. That'll do it for this one. Until next time, peace.